All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, August the 25th of 2017, and I have made my comeback. Yes, I apologize last week, which is a rarity. So, but I'm back and excited to catch up on this. In fact, I'm very excited for today's call because I have a new member of my team, David Ali Budbud. You'll be proud of me, David. I pronounced that correctly today. David is from near Manila, if not in Manila. I'll have him clarify that exactly. But we're excited to have him on board at the Griffin Realty Group, and his function here is primarily to make phone calls to reach out to folks whose houses have expired and to reach out to folks who might be in a probate situation. Now, this is not going to be easy for David because he comes from the hospitality industry, which is why we asked him to join the team. Because as you know, we're consistent in wanting to make sure that we are indeed promoting a concierge attitude. So hiring David is consistent with that. So we know, I know, early on that we need to follow a mantra and give David permission and the freedom to do what he does, which is just be nice to people. And it's not going to be easy. In fact, I asked him to fall forward and he was kind enough to do so. So we have 3 old expireds, and poor David got, hammered by all these nice New Englanders who have so much patience with people. They're just so nice. You'll get to hear that loud and clear. Present company excluded for those of you that might listen to the recording. But the point is, this ain't easy, right? So that's why we train on it, and that's why we go there, and that's why we encourage each other to be able to do this and develop a bulletproof attitude towards rejection. So I'm going to open up the microphones. Remember, if you are invited here today, it's the first time here, never been here before, or you just simply forget, *6 mutes your microphone, *7 unmutes it. So let's get her rolling, and I'll make sure that we're live here. Everybody hear me okay? Remember, I'll give you a second here. *6 mutes your microphone. If you're in a noisy spot, hit *6, please. And *7 will unmute you. So if you're in a noisy spot or you have an echoey background, you're in a car, which I can hear somebody on, *6 is what you need to hit on your microphone. Otherwise, I have to put you in what I call voice jail, and that's no fun for a sales training call. But I do expect that you will interact with me. Don't leave me here. David, do I have you live on one of these lines here?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, what's wildly crazy is that line is crackling again, so we definitely have to figure out what to do about that. So when you and I were doing our Skype calls, number one, I don't recall you using a headset. Do you have the headset on now when it crackles? Let's try to determine if it's the headset.
I'm kind of using it with the headset and without the headset.
Okay.
It actually sounds better with the headset on, so
it does.
I'm keeping it for now.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's get after this. So what you've been kind enough to do is be the guinea pig for the day here and go out there, and I don't know if you know what that American term means, but it means you get to be the sacrificial lamb here, right? So so what we'll do is you've got me 3 calls, and so let's give everybody the background or the context for this, meaning that you have a list in front of you that dates back how long?
2016.
Okay, so from
normally October, November.
Okay, from October, November of 2016. So these are old, and that was a practice. First of all, I'll tell you, I should have warned you before that. We have to go back in time and understand. You would have needed to get on the MLS to check their current status. So we can't with older ones assume that they are indeed still in that status. So remember, that could have been one of the problems that we had here, right? So even though we're practicing, I think if you're going to go back in the olden days, we've got to get you an updated status in MLS. That's number one, multiple listing service, right? So context matters. So when you go through this with me and we have these training calls, you're going to see that if they don't know why you're calling at all, David, we have a real problem. So with older expireds especially, you need to cut to that chase very quickly. You need to get there and let them know very quickly what's going on here. Hang on. So we got a couple of people. Guys, loud mics here in the background. I got to mute a few people. Try to mute your mic, *6 if you're there. And it's noisy. I had to mute a couple. So because I want everybody to lean in on this and hear me very clearly here today. So David, tell me what you were thinking when you called them first, and tell me before we let everybody listen to what happened and talk about this. Tell me what you were thinking before you made the phone calls.
Well, again, you wanted me to fall forward, and that's what I.
Yep. Oh, keep going. We lost him. No good. So you can see technology, guys, is number one. So all of you that are VAs, yeah, the technology's just, it's got to be there. And it's not with it. We started with Ring Central. I'm super not happy about what we've got so far. So he'll be calling back in here. But we've got some challenges on technology. And so anybody that's, a VA, and Flo, you can weigh in on this. I had to mute your mic. Something was hot out there in Palo Alto too. But I don't know all of you that are using VAs or somebody that's using a voice over internet protocol, but there's Skype, and then there's Ring Central and some others. We were told by the folks at my Outdesk to use Ring Central. So far, not good. And the second thing is when you're using a voice over IP, you want to really listen to these recorded calls and hear the quality of the line. It is not okay to have a, for example, earbuds and a speaker. That's not it. When you're making professional phone calls, you want to make sure you have absolutely the best equipment that you possibly can and the best line quality that you can. Because any kind of distraction, and this is what I was always worried about when we go VA with anything, whether, whatever it might be. So we need to pay attention. David, I see you're back in there, and you know what I was going to say. Not good when it comes to technology. So I'm really going to read Ring Central, the Riot Act this afternoon after the phone call. So let's get her going here, though. Tell everybody what you were thinking when you sat down to call these older expireds. Because everybody, just so you know, I threw the poor guy to the wolves because we don't have Laura here to help train. So we have to just get going, right? So go ahead. Tell them about it. What were you thinking?
Okay, again, you want me to fall forward, and I did just that. Basically, I decided to call these expireds first, and they've been long expired because I'm guessing chances are they probably might not be as warm or as hot as newer expired leads.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to sacrifice on those by blowing those up.
Yeah.
So I considered these my practice calls.
Okay. And so when
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, cool. So we had a good conversation, which I'll share with everybody earlier. You and I did a little bit of training, or I set perceptions for you. And so let's talk about, why don't you, in your own words, recreate our conversation from earlier. Tell everybody what we chatted about.
Okay. Being a Filipino, and just to give context out there, English isn't really, of course, our primary language. And what we want to do here is, to just take things slow. And I think it's important really when communicating to be as clear as possible. And that's why Danny was mentioning earlier, quality matters. So you need to have, the proper equipment. Following that, I need to be able to convey, as clear as possible, whatever it is that I want to say. And it doesn't help by talking fast. And that's natural tendency, for a guy like me who is normally excited. I have to talk slower. And, that's one very, very key and important point made earlier during the call. Another thing that, we want to be able to convey to these people that you're calling is, okay, I'm calling out of nowhere, but basically I'm here to help. And it's more of a mindset that is shared, between me and Danny. A mindset of being a man for others. Just really to go out and help. We were talking earlier about Danny going out of his way just to open the door for someone. And it's an admirable trait. I admire Danny for that. And it's a nice feeling for me to be working with someone who has that same mindset. Mm-hmm. And yeah, basically that's what the call was about.
Great. So two things, just to recreate what he just said. Number one was slow down. All of us, English speakers, mm-hmm. non-English speakers, slow down. Because when you don't slow down, and you're enthusiastic, and it's not a negative thing, but when you're enthusiastic in a sales situation, especially in the phone, or you're an excitable person like David and I are, we're just passionate. That's just passion. We want to move through things quickly. We're excited about the situation. We want to help you. And again, we do share this. It's ironic, as we began to talk, we saw how much more we had in common, that he's gone to a university and I went to one where the mantra was really to be the best person for others that you can be. So we're there, right? Now, the reality of the situation is you still have to pick up the phone and deal with everything that goes on from there. So we're going to hear some phone calls that sets that up. Now, remember, in a perfect world, what David will be doing is following up on phone calls where the offer is really not an offer at all. It's simply that he's picked up the phone to let them know that he sent some helpful information. Again, being consistent with being people for others, we're sending them something. So in this case, you're going to hear phone calls where that's not the case, where what we've done is we've tried to go back in history and practice. But the problem is when you go back in history and practice, what you miss is you miss context. Because once the context changes, and you're all going to hear this, right? So if I'm calling somebody from back some time ago, the script would change. I'm not going to spoil it by saying what I would do now. I want you to listen to these 3 calls, listen to the reality of the challenge of being an inside sales agent from anywhere in the world, and we'll go from there, right? That's the key.
Hello? Hi, good morning. Is this Marsha?
No.
Oh, okay. Is this Miss Marsha Police's number, or
No.
I'm actually looking for her. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I might have the wrong number. All right.
Who are you
Thank
calling?
so much for your time.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Philippines. I'm with the Griffin Realty Group.
The what group?
The Griffin Realty Group. Yeah. I think I might have dialed the wrong number.
Marsha's my wife. Marsha's
Oh,
my
okay.
wife.
Oh, all right. Can I get your name, please, sir?
Well, why are you calling? Is this a sales call?
I'm calling with regards to the home that she's selling. I see that it just expired recently, and I wanted it to be there, to help her get this back on the market if it's still for sale.
No. No, that won't be necessary.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, so when you listen to it again, what would you do differently? You, just your gut instinct, your intuition, what would you have done differently listening to that call?
Okay, again, I should have started with the right context. I should have gone straight to the point so that they know why I'm calling.
Right. So, and because you're referencing a very, very specific property, there's the nugget that you have. And the other thing is, I know you were nervous making I think that might be your very first call, or at least in the first 3.
First call, yes.
Yeah. So the very first call you get is the reaction was, you said, "Hi, is this Marsha?" And if you were listening really intently, you would have heard a man's voice instead. So you put, 2 and 2 together. It doesn't sound like Marsha, right? And so, and that's tough because that's in the speed of the moment. So, a lighter moment would have been, "Hi, is this Marsha?" "Oh, actually, it doesn't sound like Marsha. Is Marsha home?" Right? So that's where we come back to being human in the moment. So the key is, immediately what's interesting, and I want to really listen to this. What's interesting is the massive negative feeling people have towards a sales call. I mean, it's just an incredibly negative orientation to a sales call. So we need to do everything that we can to avoid sounding like this paradigm that's so negative. We have to be different. So if there's ever a moment to talk about a unique selling proposition and why it's important, or the uniqueness, I use the word selling, right? Because it's in there, but the unique proposition. Let's take selling out. Because for some reason, the world has become so negative towards salespeople that we can't even get through the door. And who is this, right? As if we've made some major interruption in their life and we're attacking them. And that's from conditioning by the world. The world just doesn't stop marketing to us and selling to us, and we get downright frustrated even though they might need us. So we are not selling. No, sir, it's not a sales call at all. Boom. Boom. Just right away. No, sir, I'm sorry, it's not a sales call at all. Immediately, right? I'm just trying to see if she's thinking about relisting the property because we'd like to send her out some free information. Now, that's back to the person for others. And remember, the context is different. These are older expireds. This is not at all what we would say to a brand new expired. So I'll deal with that in a second. But these are old expireds. So now what we need to do is go backwards in time and say, when that moment, and I like that you were patient, you didn't panic. What we talked about earlier today was that I don't want you to panic. I want you to leave the moment pregnant. Meaning what? Where there's that pregnant pause. There's that big empty space where nothing is happening. Hey guys, sorry, someone's got a click in line there in Seattle. So where there's nothing happening at all, be comfortable in that moment. Don't panic. And you were. You let it be a little bit. You didn't really give this guy wanted a reason to be defensive, right? And who knows, that's my wife. So when you're looking at this information about this property, does it list only her or does it list him too? Is she the first name on it and he's the second name and we missed that information? Oh, it's not Marcia? Could I presume it's Jim? Right? Because if you had both names, then it would be there. So we don't want to just be lazy and I'm not saying you were. I'm saying we always want to be as best prepared for that call as we can. Who potentially is the owner? And that's why we don't go after the corporate-owned properties because we don't want to deal with all of that noise of who owns it and everything. We want a name. What's the name? Is it Marcia? Great. I mean, I'm going to speed up the conversation here for a second and say, is it Marcia? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It doesn't sound like Marcia. Is Marcia home? Who's this? This is her husband. What guy is this calling my wife, right? Who knows how the guy's reacting, right? And then what you want to do is you want to lean into that moment to say, oh, it's David from the Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling, you got to get in there quickly, right? I'm sorry. The reason I'm calling is because that we noticed she expired and wanted to send out a free report to her that would help her. Period. Don't ask for, are we going to get it back on the market? Are we going to do all that stuff? No, now we sound just like everybody else. But the good news about these have been sitting here and nothing's been happening. So they're baking like a pie. So there might be an opportunity, but we really don't know much about it. Now, do you have the information in front of you? If you don't, I'd like you to look it up while we're talking. Where was that person, Marcia? Where's the property? Where's that property?
Okay, it's in East India Road, Boston.
East India Row in Boston. Okay, number one, the minute that you got into Boston, everything changes. Everybody's more edgy. Everybody's a know-it-all. A lot of smart people out there who think they're really smart, and they reject all sorts of sales training and calls. Right? We don't have brand name recognition like we do on Cape Cod, so that's going to change the whole context of the call too. So you're going to have to be there quickly to say, did you ever put the property back on the market? You know, even if you don't know, I don't care. I mean, you can't go wrong with me, right? No. So, again, typical Boston conversation. That's where Boston's going to be much more difficult. Or any city in the East Coast where everybody is edgy. New York, New Jersey. They don't have any patience, David, right? So they're going to move through these things quickly. But I liked your patience. Say, no problem. Just going through the list to make sure there was something we couldn't help. Now, remember, Boston's different too. East India Row, another thing as you and I practiced the other day, you would have Googled it. You would have looked at the property and gotten a little bit familiar where that is. Okay? That's called Harbor Towers. Those are two twin tower buildings down by the aquarium in Boston. Waterfront District is where it is. Right? So there's some pretty sharp people who are aggressively pursuing listings in East India Row. So you have to understand that. So the quick reference to John and Danny quickly, right? I work for John and Danny Griffin, the owners of the Griffin Realty Group, and we're just calling to see if you were thinking about selling that property again, right? Bang, just boom, 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 right? And so all you need to do is get yes or no, because if there is a yes, even if they hang up on you, then we'll get John on the phone with them. hey, you're talking to David. David's, overseas. He's our inside sales agent. But I thought I'd follow up. At least we know there's a heartbeat there. So it's a discoverable moment that even though scripted-wise it doesn't go well, the result is there. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so context Boston is very, very different from Cape Cod. Let's go to the next one, right? Okay, here we go.
Hi, good morning. I'm looking for Jay McManus.
Who's calling?
Hi, this is David from the Griffin Realty Group. I know I called you out of nowhere,
From
so I'll be
who?
very quick. From the
Who are
Griffin
you
Realty
calling
Group.
from? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Griffin Realty Group. And
I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying.
Okay, what happens there, by the way? The recording ends. Does he hang up on you?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so he hangs up on you. Give me the address on this one, too.
Yeah, okay, that one is in, let me just check quickly. That's in Yarmouth.
Yarmouth. Okay, so he's down here, older guy, retired. You can hear the TV or something blasting in the background. He can't hear well to begin with. We have a telephone line that's not working that well. So, we have all these factors working against us. So the question is, what went wrong there? One of the things that we talked about with word whiskers, don't ever say again, I know I'm calling you out of the blue. There's no need for it. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no need for it. I know you feel like that, and that's 100% accurate, but there's no need for it. We just don't even need to say that. I'm calling you because you had a listing on the market at one point in time, and it expired. And we do a lot of business in that area, just wondering if we could help you figure out what went wrong. Period. Boom. Try to get there. It's a fight, right? Now, if he hangs up, it's because he's watching TV. You can hear him, probably an old retired guy sitting there. Who knows what's going on with him? But he doesn't even know what we're saying or what we're calling about. So again, the same thing again is I'm calling about the listing you have that expired. Boom. Just get it out there, right? Even in some cases, don't worry so much about a major thorough identification of who you are because he's yelling, who? I'm calling about the expired listing. You can yell back into the phone because maybe he's hard of hearing. I'm calling about your listing that expired, your house that expired. So you can lift your volume up if you have to fight your way into the octagon of the conversation. Make sense?
Yes.
Because there still may be an opportunity there. Still may be, right? So go ahead. Your thoughts when you think about this situation.
Okay, well, I guess I was a bit handicapped there with regards to the quality of the call and the guy being hard of hearing.
Yes.
So we put those two factors together and, yeah, you have an irritated old man.
Yes, that's exactly what you have. I'll throw it in. McManus. I'm an Irish kid from Boston. He's an irritated old Irish guy. They're everywhere in Boston. That's what we do. I'll be one of them someday, David, okay? That's what we do that best, right? That's what we do best here. So, but that's okay because that doesn't mean, and what people like is a little bit of scrappiness, right? They don't want a shrinking violet. They want scrappy, not agitating, but they want scrappy. It sounds like you can't hear me too well. I'm just calling about the expired listing. Did you ever sell the house? Right? So now you just fall into trying to fight your way in. We plan for a fight a certain way. Right? We plan for a fight. Everything's strategic. Well, I'll throw my left jab and then I'll throw a right hook and I'll be in this fight. And then all of a sudden, what's the first thing that happens in the fight? We get punched in the nose and our eyes water and we feel like crying. And all of a sudden, the plan goes out the window. So we have to survive. It's the same way in a conversation like that. You're trying to survive. Jay, it sounds like it's a little bit noisy there. I'm just calling about the expired listing. Did you ever sell the house? That's survival. Right? So that's your intuition that kicks in. Because again, with me, especially working with me on my team, David, you have nothing to lose. You can't go wrong. Don't swear at somebody. That's our only rule. Right? So,
I'll try not to.
all right, let's get this last one. So here we go.
Hi, good morning. This is Paula Atwood.
What's your name?
Oh, my name's David. I'm from the Griffin Realty Group. I know I called you out of nowhere, so I'll just make this very quick. I'm calling about your home that came off the market sometime last year. This is the one
I don't
down
want
in
to talk
41
about
Maddox
this,
Street.
okay? I'm sorry,
Oh,
but
all right.
please take me off your list.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, which is kind of strange there. Again, let's go back and see if she resold or what happened. So again, what you're missing in all three is a better context. How long ago did they expire? Right? So we're going to have to show you inside of MLS what that looks like. So the key would be for you to get with Laura next and say, Laura, you need to train me a little bit, according to Danny, on looking at the history of these things so that you just have better context. And it would be good also, while you're making these calls, if you're looking at the property in front of you and you know the history, you have a much stronger context. Because again, with expireds, a lot of people can be frustrated. And this is not going to be the typical call. So I'm actually training you on something that's, I think, harder to do than what we actually will have you do, which is when the new expired happens, everybody's calling. So everybody's in that mode. Hey, David, it's Danny Griffin calling. I know everybody's probably calling you. I just want to let you know that Danny put something in the mail to you that I think will help you with the expired listing. Just want to let you know that that's coming to you. Hey, by the way, while I have you, were you thinking about relisting it? And just you try to get in there. But if you can't get in there, all your job is in the real expired scenarios, get that call in, let them know we sent them something, and say, I'll be following up to make sure you got it. Just want to give you a heads up, it's in the mail. Right? If they'll talk to you, great. If they won't, get out of there. That's the normal conversation. Right? That's the hospitality desk. That's what we want in that first call. We don't want to try to do too much. Does that make sense?
definitely.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's have some conversation. Who was that? Patrick?
Patrick here.
Go ahead, buddy.
I would actually recommend, when you say Griffin Realty Group, I would slow that down a little bit, because it seems like in the last two calls, I think people don't even fully hear you, or what company you're coming from. So I think it sounds great. I mean, as far as like your tonality and everything goes, but I think just slow down Griffin Realty Group. It kind of seems like it's a little bit rushed. I think maybe if you slow it down, at least people will know, where you're calling from.
Absolutely. And see,
That's
David.
a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, David, it's the same conversation we had earlier, and Patrick hears it, right? He hears it. And you did a good job, I thought, in those moments where your pace was fine. I agree with him. It's just be very clear. I'm from the Griffin Realty Group. But again, not a bad idea, because these are long. Remember, it's been a while since this person expired. A lot has happened. They've gotten frustrated with the market. They can't move. There's a lot going on there. This is not fresh. So again, you're trying to make an inroad into something. Now, remember what I told you in Boston. In Boston, it's a much different, dense market. There are people that have been there for years that are established in these areas as listing agents, okay? And so to make a marketplace there for the Griffin Realty Group is a much bigger, tougher endeavor. Whereas on the Cape, there's all sorts of signage that we have in the areas you're calling. There's all sorts of business that we do currently. Whereas in Boston, even when we get a listing, it's on and off the market quickly. So you don't have that acceleration of brand recognition. So Patrick's right. All you're doing is identifying that it's a professional organization. Well, where are you? Well, we're on Newbury Street in Boston. Boom. These are all just points of recognition. But the reason I'm calling is to see if I can help you. Because it seemed like you expired and didn't come back on the market. Was there any reason why not? Because John sells quite a bit of property in downtown Boston. At India Row, he's sold a couple of those too. And again, you'll get used to that dialogue. But it's just trying to find out if there's any interest at all, because that call then goes immediately to John or me for Boston. Immediately. Because otherwise, you couldn't take it any further than that. So Patrick's right. I'm David from the Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling is because you expired a ways back, and I wanted to see if you were thinking about relisting it at any point. Right? That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. All right, other comments from other people here today that heard that stuff. How'd you feel about it for yourselves when you heard it? The guy did a great job just falling forward in a very, very difficult scenario. What'd you think? Don't all jump in at once to help the guy. Come on now. Let's go. It's a sales training call. Thank you. Go ahead.
This is Lisa from Birmingham. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. How are you? Thank you. You're always there to bail me out, Lisa. Go ahead.
Well, I was trying something new recently that seems to be working really well in my approach in calling expired. Is that when I first, ask them their name, and they say that this is so and so, then I say, "Hi, I'm Lisa," and I stop and I say, "How are you?"
Mm-hmm.
And as simple as it sounds, it changes it from making it a sales call into turning it so I actually care about how they're doing. And I've found that it kind of throws them off guard, and
Yep.
then they have to answer the question, how they're doing. And then I can go right into, are you still interested in listing your home, or is your home available, and kind of go into the spiel that way. So
Cool.
I don't know, has anybody else tried that?
Well, I think it's great, and I think it's also cultural too. So let's talk about that. You're in the Midwest. People tend to be, although you are in more of a major city, that's probably more edgy than the general Midwest, but you'd have to tell me that one. So I think folks in the Midwest will tend to be, or perhaps the South, would be a little bit kinder and gentler and give you a real answer. Right? It'll be interesting to see, and I'll have David, David, you could certainly try that. And I think he did on one of those calls. And they almost got suspicious, right? And that's just the East Coast edge. That's the way that it is. Hardcore city, East Coast edge, whatever you want to call it. It's just a fact of life. So in some cases, I think it will work. And again, then we have the wild card, Lisa, of what type of person just answered the phone. Are they a kind person? Are they not a kind person? Right? So I think...
Right. Even in the Midwest, sometimes it doesn't work. It's
Right.
not like the catch-all.
Right.
But it does kind of like twist it a little bit instead of just jumping right into a sales pitch, you know?
For sure. Well, first of all, I wouldn't jump into a sales pitch, period. It wouldn't
Right.
even, for me, it wouldn't even be on my radar. There's zero sales pitch for me. And I sell a lot. So my technique, even when I'm in the field trying to get the listing or putting a deal together, I don't sell anything. I actually lead people to a conclusion based on the evidence. I mean, I can't make somebody motivated. I just can't do it. However,
Right.
I'm reading something that has me very intrigued, and I'm going to take your conversation a little bit further, and you could take me to the outside sales because we're now into the second half of the call. I think triggers matter, and I think if we ignore them, it's a problem. So when I say triggers, there are certain things, and I'll get it a little bit clearer, but I'm reading a book that's pretty good, and I like it. And it's the same thing that we talked about this week in the mastermind a little bit about our flyers and the words they say. We do need to enter the conversation that's already going on in the consumer's mind. That's what headlines are for. If you stop, and you all should do this, you should stop in line or at a magazine store and you should take a look at something like the National Enquirer. What you'll notice are the bold headlines. And you'll notice that they trigger you, they agitate you, they do something to make you stop what you're doing and go there. And it's not necessarily that they're entering a conversation that you're having, right? I mean, Michael Jackson comes back from the dead. That's the type of stuff that kind of pattern interrupts you, that just makes you throw off. You're throwing somebody off. So to your case, you are throwing somebody off. Hey, Danny, it's Lisa. How you doing? It makes me stop and think, uh-oh, do I know Lisa? Am I supposed to know Lisa? So you're right. It's a pattern interrupt. Let's call it that. And there are a lot of them. There are ones that have a little bit more of a negative bent to them, a little bit more edgy bent, or there are those that are just friendly. I mean, downright friendly. It is really, really hard to be mean to somebody who's friendly. You notice in all three calls, nobody was really mean to him. Nobody. Why? He's nice. They were abrupt, they were short, take me off the list, because he had an old context that had faded to a thin razor and maybe wasn't even realistic. And so he didn't have the context, but nobody was really mean to him personally. So I like your technique because you sound like you own it. So when you go through there, tell me a little bit about what happens after, hi, how are you? What happens next in your experience so far?
I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself there. So then I just asked them if they're still interested in selling their home, And, it can go any one of different directions. They can start talking with me, or they can be very abrupt. So I've had a whole range of experiences with that.
Yes.
But I think just changing my intent and really listening to what they have to say,
Yes.
and trying to somehow find a way to offer them something versus selling them something has been really helpful.
Yeah. Well, what is their need? Let's go back to context for both you and David here today. The context is everything. If you want to be good in a sales scenario, you have to understand why you can fulfill their need. So that starts off by saying, well, what is the need? What's the need? So let's stay with sellers for a second. In the real estate agency business, we have some very clear context, not the least of which is something we talk about a lot here. We'll add a third one too. We talk about expireds. There's a very clear context. We talk about probates. There's a very clear context. We talk about for sale by owners. There's a very clear context. But they're all different. But they're all sellers. How about that? So what's universal about them is let's assume the probate has property to sell. What's different about them all is the orientation to the reason why there's a sale that potentially could happen. But once we get beyond that context, universally, the way that we're going to take them through it as sales folks with a strategy is universal. We need them all to pay attention to the price. We need them all to pay attention to how to recondition their property, stage it, and then what we're going to do to market it, how we're going to communicate, how we're going to negotiate, and how we're going to close it. That's universal. That's the 7-point strategy that a strategic professional real estate agent in this group, at least, follows. So we know after we cross that Rubicon what's there, but you have to be uber relevant in that first moment, thinking in that moment. Lisa, just leave, Lisa, just leave it unmuted. Leave it unmuted. Leave it, even if there's background. Go ahead.
I think I am unmuted, correct?
Okay. Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I try to let them know that, we specialize in expired listings, and then I try to find out if they know why their house didn't sell, like whether it was a problem from their agent or the lack of marketing. And a lot of people don't even know why. So then I offer to say, well, I'd love to come by, take a look at your property, and see if I can't help figure out why your house did.
Okay, but see the leap there? That's the problem I always saw with this approach myself, because I'm as aggressive as anybody. I believe that if you just let me in your darn house as quickly as possible, at least I'm going to help you figure out how to get it sold, right? Regardless of what your problem is. I'm like you. I'm enthusiastic. I want to be there. I want to get to your house. But that's what I want, right? That's what I want. I want it to happen fast. I want to be able to help all these people. That's what I want. So ironically, the disposition for me in that moment is extremely selfish. It's extremely selfish, right? Even though it feels altruistic, it feels like I'm a person for others because, look, just listen to me. I'll come to your house. I'll figure out what went wrong, or before you even list, I can figure out how to help you, and you're in a probate and you're upset, you lost somebody. I can help. It's an irony that that's selfish, but it is. If we would just slow it down and we would think, okay, look, let's take this really seriously and say, helping these people, could you really disconnect from the outcome? Could you really, Lisa, attach the fact that you may be helping somebody and you may get nothing in return? Does that hurt to say it, to think it?
No, in the real estate market, that happens all the time.
I mean to you. I want to get very personal with you. How do you feel if I tell you there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you where you're going to be able to give tremendous amounts of help, but you won't get paid?
I personally enjoy helping people, but there's that fine line of I also like to make money. So I guess I'm kind of mixed emotions on there. On some instances, I'm okay with helping people and not getting paid, but for the most part, when it comes to work, I would much rather be paid for it.
Okay, so
honesty.
Right. See my point? Ultimately, when we tell ourselves the truth, it's a selfish motivation. And I'm going to even say something a little bit different from what you said. I don't even think the truth is you like to make money. I think the truth is you need to make money. So do I. So does anybody that has to make a living to put food on the table and shelter over their head and get their car and their clothes, etc. The basics of life. We need it. It's a human need. So let's call it what it is. I need to get paid. You need to get paid. There's no doubt about it. So that immediately at its rawest base puts us in a selfish position, doesn't it? Right? I mean, just that's the logic. Let's hit it with the logic hammer.
Right.
So you need to get paid. But what I need you to believe as a coaching member here is to say, look, Lisa, you have to believe that the solution to me helping you fulfill your need to get paid is going to be a real strong effort or requirement to detach from the outcome of getting paid. It's an irony. But those that can become, as long as the strategy's good, don't think I'm getting crazy here on a Friday, okay? I'm not dehydrated. That was last week. I'm just telling you right now, the key is if I can detach from the outcome of getting paid and just let it be the positive byproduct that it is, and I can believe that with a good strategy and a consistent effort, I can help a lot of people. First of all, you heard 3 people that sort of said no. One was very specific. Take me off your list. Okay? That's specific. I know that Lee, his philosophy was, okay, there's 3 no's and we keep going. But in that case to David, because it's an old lead, the first thing I would say is, David, go look up India, whatever her house was, with that lady, the lady that said, take me off your list. Just out of curiosity and edification, go look at her house, see if she put it back on and sold it. Because if she did, we had a wasted time calling her, right? If she did, it was a complete waste of time. If not, we need to get better in that moment. You follow me, Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go back to the need. If I need to get paid, there is a certain numbers game to this. If my strategy's right, then I have to believe it and measure it so I become certain. See, what you don't like is the uncertainty of getting paid regularly. And this industry does not allow us to get paid regularly, and it punishes us really harshly without a strategy. But let's just say, and I've trained the mastermind members on this, if you drew a circle around an area that you cover, and you went after every expired and every probate and every for sale by owner for 365 days, where you said, I will not be the problem. I will call every one of them until I hear you cannot help me. So what that means is that if I set that standard, my need will definitely get fulfilled. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Come on, say it with some conviction or argue with me, right? Do you believe that? And if you do, why?
Oh, I said yes.
Yeah, I know, but why? Why do you believe it?
Mainly because it is a numbers game. If you're calling that many people, at some point somebody is going to react and say, yes, I need your help.
Great. Why? Why do you believe that you'll get a yes? Tell me why.
Well, I believe that because everybody is an expired listing because they have one motivation, and that is to sell their home. And whether it didn't work out or they changed their mind and took it off the market, at some point they wanted to sell their home. They went through all the effort of hiring an agent and listing it, and they might be very hurt that it didn't sell, but it still usually leaves the intention that they want to sell their home.
Keep going.
So they're
I like it.
looking for the person to help them.
I love it. Keep going. Keep going. Why would they allow you to help them? Keep going. Think about the obvious. State the obvious. Based on what I had just said, why would it end up being you they say yes to?
Well, I think you would have to show them what was different about you.
How about if it's simpler than that?
Or I should say,
How about if it's simpler? How about if you have a good strategy that says, here are the universal 7 points to selling a house. Since you wanted to sell it, one of these went wrong or all of them. And I really want to help you figure out in your case which one of these happened. So I'm going to send this to you for free. You send it. Oh, your girlfriend's the realtor. You know what? Why don't you use my strategy to help her? You got to believe at that level of depth that you really can help them. Now, we've given you the best simple strategy that we could give you to say, I liked your passion up to that point, but you have to pursue this individual expired listing until there is absolutely no opportunity. What's that mean? They relisted with somebody else and sold. That's what that means, right? That you said, this is my house. This is my area. I will pursue until I hear a no, because I know that somebody that hears my strategic 7-point plan is going to let me in. And once they let me in, I'm going to stay there until together we figure out what the challenge is. And then once we figure out the challenge, I'm going to say that I believe that I can follow this plan and take this to the marketplace and give them the best chance to win. And ultimately, all that help is going to make you, hang on to your seat when I say this word, competition-less. The greatest unique selling proposition, Lisa, you will ever have is an adherence to believe that if you just help so much more than everybody else, how can you be competed against? Assuming your strategy is good enough. Assuming that. I have to put an assumption in there. You can't just be really nice and tenacious and helpful without a good strategic approach, right? Because you could come right back on being all those things and price it wrong, and guess what happens? Nothing. Same result. So you have to be good at these strategic discussions. Look, I think your price was close. Tell me the evidence. Did anybody come? Did you get any offers? Right? Nope, nobody came. We better review the pricing it right first. That's why we have it in our strategy first. So let's take a look at that. You see where I'm going with this? This all comes together as a narrative that supports you just not stopping until you're certain in that individual case there is no longer an opportunity. So
yeah, I interestingly enough have that discussion tonight with the listing that I took, because I know I took it overpriced.
Yep.
But I also saw a lot of other flaws in the previous strategy that the other agent had used. And the only way to get that listing was to say, all right, I'll take it at this price. Let's go through all these other things that we found out wrong, fix those first. And then if we still don't have offers on this property, then we know it's the price. So we did that, and it's been almost 2 weeks now. So we're meeting with the owners, and we're going to have that very conversation of, okay, now we know it's the price. Good.
Excellent. I have no critique. I don't. So now let's talk about what you're going to say. Perfect way to, continue this call. So now tonight, you're going in there by yourself or with Paul?
Oh, I'm taking Paul.
Yep, it's okay. It's okay.
Help me out with this, because I have tried over and over with them to find out why they're stuck on this price.
Okay.
They don't owe that much on the house. Half of their stuff is already moved, and yet they won't give me a definitive reason as why they're stuck on this price.
Tell me how you explicitly asked them.
I'm sorry, you just cut out there.
Sure.
Did you say to specifically ask them?
Tell me how you specifically asked them why this price. Give me the dialogue.
I don't know if I can remember word for word, but it was something along the lines of why do you think this house is worth this much, and why are you not willing to budge on that price? No, I didn't say that, but I can't really.
Yeah, because that, by the way, that would have been yeah.
I asked them.
All right, hold on. Lisa, your line is crackling. I don't know if you went into a tougher spot there. So I had trouble hearing you. Did you move somewhere where this reception went sideways?
No, I'm in the same spot.
Okay, cool. So I can hear you now. So here's the deal. Number one, you just said that, so guess where that's alive and well, that narrative?
In their minds.
In yours.
In mine.
In yours. In yours. Because the only thing we can control is what you and I talk about that you're preparing for tonight. Why will they not budge on the price is very strong language. And so here we go again. I'm going to show you how this connects. I'm going to play Dr. Freud here of real estate for a second. The minute you tell yourself, I need that check, I need to get paid, and this knucklehead won't budge on the price. You see what I'm saying? And I'm exaggerating the point, but I'm not off base. The way we talk to ourselves actually at a subconscious level permeates our language. And even if we don't explicitly state it that way, it's still in our attitude and they can sense it. We can sense each other. All these ideas, by the way, if you want to really read it or listen to really a great audiobook, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. I forget the narrator whose voice it is really intoxicatingly interesting. Success. He has to get into the chemistry of it first, meaning he's saying that we can hear each other's thoughts and they come freely in and out of our minds through the ether. It's what happens. So when you walk in with a disposition tonight thinking, ugh, I hope they budge on this, they can hear you. Let that sink in. They can hear you. They can hear you. They can hear you thinking like that. Not everybody could explain how this all works, but if I can sit here in my basement and hear you through wireless communications, you don't think we can hear each other? Have you ever repeated the same line as somebody that's close to you? We can hear each other. We can sense each other. There's all that we just don't give credence to in a sales context. So the minute we walk in and saying, I need this, they can hear that, and it's dangerous. So when you come in there tonight, we need to dig in at the whole strategy again, not just the price. I know why you're going over there. You're going over there to try to review the price. And you did the right thing by checking the boxes, but you have to go back in and say, hey guys, thanks for having us over tonight. We're here to just go back over our 7-point strategy and I'll take a look at round number 1. Let's figure out where we're really at with this whole thing. So you take that infographic and you sit them back down almost as if this is a brand new scenario, right? It's Lisa, you with me? It's a brand new scenario, but we know a lot more about them. We know a lot more about the product, the situation. We've had some showings or not that we can draw upon. So all of that is now evidence we didn't have before. But that internal thought process, they can hear you saying, I hope they budge on this price. It's the wrong language to walk in there with tonight, right? What I did with one of my clients recently is said, look, here we're at round number 1 of feedback. And here's what we know. We know that when we originally looked at the pricing range, the math supported us up here. Unfortunately, at this price, I'm getting some real pushback. And here's what I see. I see that at this price, the updates are scaring people. And the challenges of how you can do those updates, I won't get into it, Lisa. Primarily, we have to lift the house if you want to do more than 50% of the building value, blah, blah, blah. There's complications. But what I said is, look, I think we need to clean the house a little bit more. I think we need to paint the trim. I think we need to power wash the siding. I think we need to cut the beds in and put the mulch in. We're not going to get away with just being waterfront with a dock. It's not going to be that easy. We're going to have to dig into this scenario. And so round number 1 tells us we'll do those things. How do you feel about those things? And the quick answer was, no problem. We can do those things. Do you have a guy for the power wash? Yes. Here's my guy. Boom. Give it to him right there. Do you have a guy for the painting of the trim? Yes. Here's my guy. So I'm ready to be the resolution. Do you have the landscaper? My whole team moves swiftly, Lisa. We come in, we take care of these things from round 1. However, even in spite of those things, it's time to ratchet the price down because I'm leaving us hanging by not saying that up here. In other words, as the market maker for this, in spite of the things I'm recommending you do, I've exhausted this first price tier. We all know that's the high end of the range. We discussed it before. So the next price tier, I believe, is here. And that is all round 2. Great, thanks. Because, you've given the effort. Now, remember, the supporting documentation and supporting evidence, also including having done open houses myself and gleaned this information myself. It's a luxury waterfront property. I'm there. Nobody else. So when I give you this information, it's with authority. It's with strength. And they know that I gave it a real blood, sweat, and tears effort before I make that suggestion. So the question to you is, have you done the same? Have you done the same?
Well, as far as the condition of their house, it's impeccable for sales purposes. It's more of the layout on the top floor. So it's something very structural that needs to be fixed, or the new buyers are going to have to spend a lot of money. But other than that, the only thing that I am disappointed on is that I have suggested on multiple occasions that we needed to have an open house to bring in more exposure, and so that, I could be there in the house hearing what people have to say about it. And they put their foot down, thinking they somewhere have this rumor in their head that open houses are only good for the agent that's holding it. And I literally just the weekend before sold a house from an open house. And so I had a perfect story to explain to them, look, open houses will bring buyers in the door. We had an offer the next day. So I had a good example, but I couldn't convince them to actually have an open house at their home.
Okay. So now I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning, because you can get better from the beginning, which you have a fresh start tonight. You have a fresh start tonight with Paul. Okay. And you want to go back and reiterate your strategy. If I don't believe you're going to lead me to the promised land, I'm going to doubt you. Now, when you first came in, I didn't know you, so I doubt you a little bit, and I doubt your strategy a little bit in the beginning. So you have to come in there tonight confident and strong to say, look, thanks for meeting with us tonight. We just want to go back over our strategic plan, take a little inventory of where we're at the moment. They know why you're coming. They know you're going to ask for a price reduction or something. I mean, they're not dumb. Sellers know that. But you don't come and hammer them in the head with it. The same way in an inside sales call, you don't pick up the phone. When can we meet? When can we meet? When can we meet? You just don't do that. So what you do is you go back and say, look, we appreciate you going to sit down with us.
Right.
We want to just break out this 7-point strategy because we think there's a few things that we didn't articulate clearly enough to begin with. So let me go through this with you for a second. But before we do that, any questions about where we're at in the process before we start again? So again, it's a fresh start. I have a clean start. But again, I'm so much further along with them. There's relationship. So now, guys, look. What we did was we did a fresh analysis on the pricing. As you know, that's the first stage of our 7-point strategic plan. So we reiterated and looked at the pricing range. So it sounds like, we're still in there. And we did have some requests for showings and there was some feedback. So the good news is we're there. So we can come back to that. Now, as far as the condition is concerned, we still think you're impeccable. We told you that the first night your house is impeccable. You can eat off the floor. There was a couple comments where maybe you could tweak this or fix that. If you'd like to do that, we suggest it because it's feedback from the market. But the one thing you can't fix, and we did get feedback, is that what you have is dysfunctional or, I wouldn't say that, but I would say the layout upstairs is not to some people's liking. So a lot of people see that as a construction project potentially. So that scared a few people away. But that's okay. We'll get the right one who understands the value. Then we start to get into the feedback. And look, our marketing is a little bit handicapped here. And the reason is I don't think I made this clear enough or strong enough. I know what somebody else told you. Now, I don't know who told you this, that open houses these days are only to the benefit of the realtor. That's not true at all. Marketing is about exposure to as many people as possible. And what you probably don't understand that we'll explain to you about marketing these days, let's forget about the push marketing that we do. Let's first start talking about syndication marketing. Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, this person, that person. Everybody is rabid for new information. So every time in MLS we mark an open house, it gets spit out to the marketplace in all these applications. So there's notifications about your house constantly. And you have to fight for attention in the digital age. So what all those know-it-alls who told you it's just for the agent said is wrong, period. And you have to say it that strongly, Lisa, right? You have to say it with that kind of conviction. They're just wrong.
Right.
It's not right. And I'm telling you that in a sales training context, if I think the best, as the leader of this group and the owner of my company, if I think one of the best usages of my time is to be 90 minutes in a house on a Saturday, what's that tell you? That tells you I've made some discoveries about what's happening for exposure. And I always felt this way about open houses, okay? I might get nobody to come through, but I'm going to put that effort in to see. And if I get nobody, I'm going to be very suspicious about where I'm at. How come I got nobody? That's not good. Is it my price? Is it what's going on this weekend? Is it the market? So that's always feedback from the market. And as a market maker, you can't sell a house sitting in the bleachers hoping that some co-broke comes and shows it for you, right? The fastest path to buyers is to promote an open house, which will get syndicated, and you can promote it on Facebook. You can put the signs up. There are multiple ways, and we want the neighbors to come. I can't stand this nonsense. When people say, well, that's just for nosy neighbors, good. Don't you think somebody who lives in the neighborhood wants to send their friend there because they want their friend to live 2 doors down? Good. What's wrong with that? So we have to get over these.
Or they want to list their home and they're curious.
Yeah, right. But that's, again, that would validate the point that they have. Well, see, that's for you. See what I mean? We keep snapping back to the things that are good for you. Yes, it's good for you because you're going to get a buyer that might, even if they don't buy that, buy something else. You might get a seller who lists with you. That is for you. And they are right about that. And I'd say that to them. Say, yeah, you're right. Somebody might come and not want to buy this and buy something else with me or list their home with me. Sure. But what you're missing is the buyer who wants to get offline and see what your property is really like, or the convenience for the co-broke who's busy and can't book the appointment, they send their buyer there. We're missing that, period. And so when you handicap us or you tie our hands to do all the full-blown marketing, you won't let me have the sign, you won't let me do this, you're just hurting yourself from exposing your property. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think the sellers.
Go ahead.
Hey, Dave. I think
Go ahead,
the
John.
sellers also have like a scarcity mentality.
Yep, keep going, John. Tell me more.
They have a scarcity mentality. The neighbor isn't going to not put their house on the market because they didn't see yours.
Right.
If they're looking at your house, it's going to be your competition. I mean, you're not going to prevent them from putting their house on the market. It's scarcity. So they're thinking that if you list somebody else's house on their house harder than you are on theirs.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, here's the reason why a lot of people expire. They won't stop and listen to a professional. Okay? Or they got weak guidance and nobody stepped in. That's my experience, right? It's one or the other. They've got all the answers because no one will go, whoa, wait a minute. Look, you don't have to list with me, but you should listen to me. Okay? You should listen to me. This is the way it goes down. This is what we do every day. We do this every day. So we know this universal plan. Here, it's in an infographic. Read it. Take it. Okay? You're not going to get around this. This is the way real estate goes down. And this is what we do. So if we can't get at this the way we need to, what are you expecting from us? If you're going to start taking away our ability to do what we do, then that's going to hurt you. And that's not a good fit for us. We need to be set up for success and turned loose on the situation. Okay? All right. That's an hour, 60-minute sprint. You get out there because you're going to be in my hot seat in a week, and we're going to find out what happened. So stay tuned. And everybody root for my new buddy, David, who's on the phone from the Philippines and got beaten up by all these tough Bostonians and Cape Codders. Let's root for all these two and get out there and make this stuff happen. But remember, I'll leave you with a final thought here. It is entirely about that other human being. Stop thinking for a minute about what you need, which is the check and the outcome that is positive, and start really trying to help them. Because when you do that, it is very hard for them not to do what you need them to do so that you end up getting paid. Everybody gets happy that way. Good work, Lisa. Good work, David. Thanks, John, for the call at the end there.
Thank you.
Everybody, go get them. Go try this stuff. See you next time. Everybody online, thank you for tuning in too. Appreciate it.